Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine-chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. My candle is lit. I'm ready to record, but I just want to let you guys know that I don't have like a recording studio. And so sometimes you might hear things in the background like my dog or my upstairs neighbor. Hoping that doesn't happen very often, but it is a possibility and probably will happen. So just be patient with me and understand that I'm just recording at a desk, and that's pretty much how this will go. And like in terms of outdoors activities, which I will always share with you guys, today is Labor Day, and I went paddleboarding with my husband and our dog at East Canyon Reservoir in Utah, and it was so beautiful. And I'm so sad that the summer is ending, but I'm going to try and be on the water as much as I can before it gets too cold. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the last morsels of summer as well. And because this is the first episode, I'm going to experiment with the format. So just bear with me while I figure all this out and figure out exactly how I want Morbid Outdoors to be. Let's get into our first episode. When a tourist from California treks north to visit the beautiful and scenic North Cascades National Park in northern Washington, no one could predict how his trip would end. After park officials noticed an abandoned painting easel near Colonial Creek Campground, the search was on for the missing artist. Searching ensued, but the owner of the easel has never been found, and his whereabouts still remain a mystery today. Today, we are going to North Cascades National Park. If you've ever been to North Cascades, you know how magical and serene it is. I first visited this park in 2021 and again in 2022 when I was living in the Pacific Northwest while doing travel healthcare. My husband and I did a van life road trip and camped in this national park for a few days to enjoy hiking around the park and kayaking on Ross Lake, which was absolutely magical. The second time we visited, we had our engagement pictures made near Diablo Lake. I was told that locals say Diablo out of superstitious reasons. And so I actually saw this missing persons flyers up while we were at North Cascades in 2021. And it was very eerie because you've got people having fun, we're kayaking, we're camping, we're hiking, and then you've got these very just kind of creepy, missing persons flyers up where everyone's having a good time and having fun. And so first on Morbid Outdoors, before we get into everything, I am going to read 1-star reviews from each national park. So today I will be reading 1-star reviews from North Cascades National Park. So Al said, quote, "Creepy place." End quote. Dean said, quote, "Too many mountains, trees, snow, etc. Maybe want to go to the beach." End quote. Someone else said there's inconvenient parking. And Joyita said, quote, "Good, only good, nothing awe-inspiring." End quote. And I just want to give you guys a little laugh, right? Because most of our content is pretty heavy and dark and deep, but If you ever want a good laugh, just Google like 1-star reviews on Google pages for national parks because they can get kind of ridiculous. So, here's a little background on North Cascades National Park. North Cascades National Park was established on October 2nd, 1968. It's approximately 100 miles northeast of Seattle. We are actually visiting North Cascades next month again, and I am so excited because it is beautiful. North Cascades National Park is over 500,000 acres, and in 2022, it was reported to have just a little over 30,000 visitors, making it one of the least visited national parks in America. North Cascades National Park is almost entirely protected as wilderness, and so the park has few structures, roads, or other improvements. It is pretty wild. Actually the land is wild, because it is pretty much all wilderness. So visitors wishing to drive to a campground must do so in the adjacent national forest or national recreation areas. Camping inside the park requires hiking in by trail, horseback, or boat. And camping is regulated by a permit system to ensure the wilderness is not overexploited. The tallest mountain in North Cascades National Park is Good Mountain at 9,220 feet. There are more than 500 lakes and ponds located in this park. Hundreds of creeks and streams and several rivers originate within this park. With approximately 312 glaciers, North Cascades National Park has the most glaciers of any U.S. park outside of Alaska, and a third of all the glaciers in the lower 48 states. The North Cascades National Park complex glaciers cover an expansive, totaling 27,000 acres as of 2009. Now, I'm sure that has gone down because that fact is old, but I could not find any updated information on that fact. So, despite its beauty, this is the deadliest national park in America. The park had 3.7 deaths for every 100,000 visitors from 2007 to 2021, more than 3 times the rate of the next deadliest site, Wrangell St. Elias National Reserve in southern Alaska. And that data is from the National Park Service. Kelly Bush, a former ranger who worked for North Cascades for more than 3 decades and oversaw its search and rescue operations, said many of the deaths she knew about were among alpine climbers and hikers. So, unfortunately, people plunging from mountains or fatally wounded by falling rock and ice. The park does not allow anchors in stone for climbers, so it's a little risky to climb there, right? And this is what Cynthia Hernandez, a Park Service spokeswoman, said, quote, "Each park has inherent and unique risks, and while some park activities are riskier than others, it does not necessarily make the park more dangerous," end quote. And I agree with her. When you're outside, you are going to take risks, and it just depends on where you're at, right? So, the Cascade Range is tall enough to cause a significant rain shadow on the eastern slopes. Annually, the western portions of the park receive 76 inches more precipitation than the eastern sections. The higher precipitation in the west also correlates to increased snowfall, with 400 inches more measured in the west rather than the east annually. Now, in this park, snow covers the ground more than 6 months out of the year, even at the lower elevations. And on State Route 20, the only highway through the park, it's generally closed from late November until late April. Numerous avalanche chutes, as many, so many. I mean, if you've driven this highway, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And basically, it snows so much up there, and there are so many avalanches that it's impossible to clear this highway. So State Route 20 it's so beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. But you only have 6 months or less a year to see it. Now, in terms of animals, North Cascades National Park has a diverse array of ecosystems ranging from wet temperate rainforests to dry ponderosa pine forests, and a diverse array of animals are at home in these environments. North Cascades is home to approximately 75 mammal species and around 21 species of reptiles and amphibians, which is really cool. Even though there's so much snow that covers this park in the winter, it's so diverse in its life forms, right? So they have about 200 species of birds and at least 28 species of fish. And a recent survey has documented over 500 types of land insects and approximately 250 aquatic invertebrate species. So some of the mammals found in North Cascades include the gray wolf, fisher, and wolverine. They're smaller in numbers, but they do call North Cascades their home. There are Columbia black-tailed deer, river otters, mink, cougar, bobcat, beaver, marmots, Douglas squirrels, and pikas. And then some of the birds that call this place home include the bald eagle, osprey, peregrine falcons, and a variety of neotropical migrant birds. And we said that there's a lot of fish and amphibians, and that would make sense because there's so much water. There's lakes, rivers, streams, and one of the watersheds nearby is one of the few watersheds in the continental U.S. to have runs of Pacific salmon species, which is very, very cool. Other animals or insects and bugs that live there are butterflies, dragonflies, stoneflies, and mayflies. So in terms of plant life, extreme variation in rock and soil types, exposure, slope, elevation, and rainfall create many diverse habitats within a relatively small area. About 1,600 vascular plant species have been identified in the park's 8 different life zones. Plant life in the North Cascades is extremely varied. So there are so many different plants here, and actually no other U.S. national park surpasses the North Cascades in the number of plant species recorded, which is amazing. I mean, seriously, if you think about it, there's so much snow up there, for the majority of the year, but it's just teeming with life, right? And I think that's a really cool fact. So this might be you might be at the bar doing trivia, and that North Cascades is actually the only national park in the U.S. that has the most number of plant species. So yeah, that's your one fun fact for the day. Now, I always want to talk about the first people of these national parks because before this land was taken and stolen from the people that lived there, this was home to people. This was home to a lot of people. And so I am going to try to do what I can to honor the first people and give you some background information into who lived here before it was stolen for national park use. So, human history in the North Cascades National Park and the surrounding regions begins 8 to 10,000 years ago, after the end of the last glacial period. The region was first settled by Paleo-Indian Native Americans, and by the time European Americans explorers arrived, it was inhabited by the Skagit tribes. Now, I've heard people say Skagit. I've heard people say Skagit. I'm just going by what I told was correct, and I believe that is Skagit. By the early 19th century, the region was visited by fur trappers, and several British and American companies vied for control over the fur trade. So indigenous tribes did live here. This was their homeland, and they were pushed out by colonizers, the fur trappers, and eventually the National Park Service. So I want to talk about fire because most summers there are fires in and around this area, and this summer has been particularly bad for North Cascades National Park complex. So in the North Cascades National Park, fire was used by the indigenous people in the region near the present-day Ross Lake to clear out brush, to ease foot travel and possibly flush animals out of foliage. Evidence found in the patterns of tree growth, as well as the tree ring analysis, indicates that human-caused fires were created for many hundreds of years, which I have seen this on Indigenous Women Hikes Instagram. The native people, the indigenous peoples, were the first stewards of the land, and they had been using fire for hundreds of years to prevent basically wildfires. So if you know anything about wildfires and like timber stand improvement, you know that actually burning is very good for the environments in a lot of places. So I just thought that that was interesting. Now, I want to go over some bear safety tips because something that you might or might not know is that North Cascades National Park is actually going to reintroduce the grizzly bear into the boundaries. And so I think it's very important to know about bear safety when you're out, not just in North Cascades, but everywhere. So the first tip is hike and travel in groups. And I'm not going to expand, I'm just going to read the little snippets. Be alert. Make a lot of noise when you're hiking. Give the bears space. There's a rule of thumb that if you can put your, it's an actual rule of thumb, you can put your thumb up and you can still see the wildlife, and you're squinting looking at your thumb, holding it out in front of you, you're too close. You need to be as far away from wildlife as you can for your safety and for their safety. And then if you see a bear, do not run. That is you should never, ever run. And I've heard this little phrase be used, and I actually like it because it's easy to remember. If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lay down. So if it's a black bear, usually fighting back, they'll be scared and they'll go away. If it's a brown bear, that means it's most likely a grizzly. That is when you need to fake like you're dead. And that is probably going to be the only way you survive a grizzly attack. I'm not sure exactly how accurate this statement is, but it could help you in, a split-second decision. And of course, always carry bear spray when you're out. Always make sure your dogs are tethered when you're out. I can't focus enough on outdoor safety. It is something that I am super passionate about because a lot of these accidents and these things can be prevented, and you have to know what to do to prevent these things. So like I said, North Cascades National Park has management plans in place to return grizzly bears to the park, but not wolves, as the latter is seen as likely to reestablish themselves naturally over time. So they believe that the wolves will reestablish packs in the national park over time. The park is a prime habitat for the grizzly bear, but the species was basically exterminated from the region by 1860. So when I was there a couple years ago, a park ranger told me that very, very rarely do the grizzly bears come down from Canada into the park, but it does happen. And now they're actually going to reintroduce them. So only 2 grizzly bear sightings occurred in the decade before 2015, and these were actually outside the park boundary in Canada. So, as always, we're going to talk about the 10 essentials everyone needs to carry on them while they're outdoors. The 10 essentials are only the basic items you should have on you. You might need additional items depending on the activity in which you participate. So, life jacket if you're going to be on the water, bug spray, personal locator beacon. And I will I'll put a link in the show notes about the park's website to learn more about the park and your activity before you head out. So these are the 10 essentials. Navigation. You want to have a map, compass, and GPS system. Navigation systems are used when planning your route before your trip and when you need help orienting yourself and your surroundings during your activity. Know how to use a topographical or relief map as well as a compass or GPS unit belonging to you. I actually have a Garmin InReach Mini, and it is the best purchase I have ever made because it can save my life. The second item you need is sun protection. So I'm talking sunglasses, sunscreen, hats, long sleeves. We know that, sun can cause skin cancer, but if you get lost outside and you do not have sun protection, it is going to be very, very brutal on you. Insulation. When you're outside, you should always bring layers. I want you to have a jacket, a hat, gloves, a rain shell. Nature is unpredictable, and being prepared for sudden changes in weather will save your life. The next item is illumination. This is a flashlight, lanterns, a headlamp. So, the easiest thing and the lightest and the smallest thing is to have a headlamp. I think we have like 4 or 5 headlamps. We use them to walk our dog at night. I have one each in each like backpack. This is so crucial, and you should never rely on your cell phone for illumination. The next item you should have is first aid supplies. Being prepared for emergencies by packing first aid supplies is crucial. So you can always do a pre-made kit with specialty items in it, or you could always buy a pre-made like first aid kit at Walgreens or REI, anywhere. You need to have something on you that's for first aid. Something else you need that is part of the 10 essentials is fire. So you need matches, a lighter, or fire starters, and preferably waterproof of these things. Familiarize yourself with the fire use regulations in your park before heading out. These should only be used if you absolutely need a fire because they could start a wildfire, and that's not what you want if you get lost and stuck outside. So, another one of the 10 essentials is repair kit and tools. This would be like duct tape, knife, screwdriver, scissors. I don't really carry a lot of this stuff on me because it just depends on what I'm doing, but this is always a good idea just to have. And then our last 3 are food. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Hydration, which includes water treatment supplies or filtration systems. A lot of people underestimate the amount of water that they need while they are outside. You need like 3 liters of water per person. And if it's hot weather, you should have more than that. Not just a water bottle. I would advise everyone to get I call it a bladder, but it's like I cannot think of the brand, but I have a few, and it's this giant like water thing with a spout that you can use as a straw, and I'm forgetting my words. And then the last thing you should have is an emergency shelter. So like a tent, space blanket, tarp, or a bivvy. Shelter is one of the most important elements during an emergency survival situation. It can protect you from severe weather conditions and exposure to the elements. Having any of these on you is crucial. Always remember, your safety is your responsibility while outdoors. And I want to put a little plug in for Leave No Trace principles. If you are unfamiliar with the principles of Leave No Trace, they are essentials for recreating outdoors. And when I say leave no trace, I don't mean disappear and never to be seen again. I mean leave no trace so that others can enjoy the outdoors too. And here are the leave no trace principles. Plan ahead and prepare. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. Dispose of waste properly. Leave what you find. Minimize campfire impacts. Respect wildlife and be considerate of others. And I will link these in my show notes. So, today's case focuses on a missing painter. His name is Alexander Pish, and in 2019, he was fired from his job, although his LinkedIn said that he was self-employed. He was an architectural drafter and designer and graduated from New School of Architecture and Design. There's not much known about Alex and his background. I only started it off with what I could find. Being fired from his job, that's not a super big deal. But I think it might put into perspective what was happening around this time with Alexander. So Before his disappearance, his sister did state that his mental health had been declining for a few years, but he refused to take any meds for it. His family continued to support him despite how hard it was watching him in the state that he was in. But there's only so much that they could legally do. Shortly before he went missing, he was convicted of vandalism and assault against a police officer, and he actually finished probation not too long before that. So Alex was a little troubled, and I feel like a lot of people are. And I'm not including this information to shame him. I just want to show you the complete picture as to what was kind of happening in his life at this time and how his mental state was. Alex Pish was visiting North Cascades National Park from Discovery Bay, California. He was seen in a diner on his way to the North Cascades National Park, and his sister went there after her brother was reported missing. So I'm assuming she must have found a receipt in the car or something. And according to the chef at that diner, Alex was acting normal and happy. The waitress also said that he was very interactive, more so than an average customer, and that he seemed to be in a good mood and was joking around. At the time of his disappearance, he mentioned on various social media posts that he was not drinking water and fasting, which is I don't know. It's just, if people want to fast, and that's fine, but I think someone in his mental state, that might not be a super great idea. And he also claimed that God was talking to him through his car radio. And this might indicate a fragile mental state exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, because he went missing in 2020, and, things were kind of crazy back then. According to his younger sister, his mental health had been declining for a few years, but Alex refused to take any meds for it. On Thursday, October 5th, 2020, near Colonial Creek Campground on the shore of Diablo Lake in the North Cascades National Park, a worker of the North Cascades National Park noticed Alex's white Toyota Corolla, which was parked along Highway 20. So if you've been in this national park, Colonial Creek Campground, there's two. I mean, it's just one big one, but there's two. They're across the highway from each other. And the one that Alex's car was in was the one that was off of Diablo Lake. And they actually saw a painting easel, so just set up, kind of out. And according to the last person who allegedly saw him at the campground, he was acting erratic. His car had a full tank of gas, and the oil had been changed when he was in Washington, and the tires also seemed pretty fresh and new. The car and painting easel seemed abandoned. His car was noticed again by a National Park Service employee on Saturday. So when they noticed that the car was still there by Sunday, the 8th of October, they raised the alarm and the area was searched on Monday. So this was a 3-day span of his car being there and the painting easel still being set up. And on Tuesday, the 12th of October, the area was searched again by 20 NPS employees. His car was towed back by the National Park Service and later picked up by his sister and seemingly driven back to California, where the rest of his family lived. Now, I'm not exactly sure what was going on at this point in time with his family or why they would have driven the car back. I'm sure that they thought that he just abandoned it. So the National Park search team was supposed to use technology to look through the lake in search of a body or clues, but it's unclear if it actually happened or if it did, if anything was found. They were going to look in the lake. So this was all happening near Colonial Creek Campground and Diablo Lake. The campground is an hour east of Rockport off of Highway 20 in Washington State. Alex appeared to have vanished while painting a landscape scene, and his easel was mysteriously left behind at the site. But this is not the first person to go missing in this national park. Two men went missing in the same area before. Richie Collins, he went missing in 2019, and his remains were found in 2021. And Cornelius Zipro, he went missing in 2021, and he was found a few weeks later deceased, and his death was determined to be a suicide. I'm not implying that these cases are in any way related, but it does show that Alex wasn't the only person who went missing there and might not be found for quite a while. On the 15th of October, 2022, a piece of a human cranium was found at the Colonial Creek Campground by a team putting out a wildfire in the area. It's still on NamUs, so it wasn't identified to this day. It's unclear if Alex has been excluded as a match or if a match was attempted. And this is pretty much the last update from Alex's case. There are numerous things that could have happened to Alex. And like I said, when I was visiting in July of 2021, I actually saw his missing persons flyer on the Colonial Creek Campground bulletin board. I was shocked to see it still up, as it seems like the NPS, they don't advertise when there are missing people in the parks. And when I saw it, I had already known that he was missing from this area because of social media, but it was still alarming to see his missing persons flyer. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Alex left his easel, he left his car, and he just disappeared. And it's just so eerie that he was out there inside this beautiful, beautiful national park painting, and he just vanished. Now, while researching this case, I did find information about human remains just found in October 2023. October 12th, 2023, there were human remains found in a suitcase floating in Ross Lake. And according to reports, the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office interviewed the two fishermen who found the suitcase. The county medical examiner took possession of the suitcase and human remains for identification and notification of next of kin. No additional information was being released at the time due to this is an ongoing investigation. I think all of us can agree that when someone finds human remains in a suitcase, it's a homicide. And I'm not sure whose remains are in the suitcase, but yikes. I don't know. It's another such a juxtaposition of this beautiful, serene, peaceful place and then this dark, morbid, macabre things happening in this beautiful place. Ross Lake, if you guys have ever been, you have to get there by hiking, but it is amazing. And Ross Lake is actually where the picturesque little floating cabins are, which are so beautiful, but impossible to get a reservation at. What a strange place to dump a body to, Ross Lake. I have not found any updates from this case at all. The remains in a suitcase, but I doubt the remains are Alex's remains. So to close up, there's not a lot of information on Alex's case, and it's just really sad because if you do some digging, you can find his Instagram and you can watch videos and see that he was struggling with mental health. And my heart really goes out to his family and his friends because I know that they just want to find him and he deserves to be found wherever he is. I hope he's still out there somewhere, but I'm not sure if the North Cascades National Park's landscape is that forgiving. Alexander Alex Pish was last seen at the age of 35, so he's about 39 now. He also goes by the name Sasha Pai. He is white, 6 foot 1 inch tall, 140 to 160 pounds. He has strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes. If you know anything about his disappearance, contact the National Park Service, North Cascades, at 360-854-7200. His case number is NP201-45192. Also, if you want to read more about incidents in this national park, I have included a link in the show notes. These reports go as far back as 1986. Now, the strange thing is that the piece of skull reported to have been found in October 2022 is not on the list of incident reports. As always, recreate responsibly and make sure to have fun. And remember, the great outdoors aren't always that great. See you next time.